Thanks everybody for joining and welcome to the webinar about hiring superstars for your remote teams. Looks like we can go ahead and start. My name is Trisha Harris and I'm the product evangelist here at Lucid Meetings. This is a co-hosted webinar with the lovely Lisette Sutherland of Collaboration Superpowers. Lisette is coming to us from her home office in the Netherlands and she's an expert in helping remote teams collaborate. She conducts the Work Together Anywhere workshop, which allows teams to avoid miscommunications, increase camaraderie, run problem-free meetings where everyone contributes, and inspire continuous improvement. You can see more about the workshop on the Collaboration Superpowers website at collaborationsuperpowers.com. I'll be helping Lisette today by answering any questions you may have, so feel free to type your questions in the questions or the chat box, and we may be able to answer them immediately, or we may save them till the end. At the end of the webinar, we'll have a giveaway, and I'll let Lisette tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So just so you know, this webinar is the second in a series that we'll be hosting with meeting experts over the next few months. Please visit the resources page of the Lucid Meetings website to find the full list and register for other webinars. So once this webinar is over, I'll send out a follow-up email with a link to both the webinar video and the slides. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lisette to present today's topic.
Great, thanks. Hello everybody, I am Lisette and I wanted to say that we are going to be giving away a pack of super cards at the end of this webinar. So for the person who tweets something useful or something that they liked or a tip about hiring your own virtual superstar, you can use the hashtag virtual superstar and we will be giving away a pack of beautifully designed super cards. So these indicate, you can use them during video meetings to indicate that somebody is on mute or maybe that they're frozen, but this is a nice visual cue so it doesn't interrupt the conversation. Okay, we're going to start with a poll. So everybody get ready to vote in this poll. We want to know, what kind of remote team are you? So are you a team where everybody's distributed? Do you have some people working in an office and some people working remote? Do you have teams that are working in different locations, or are you a global organization with offices all over the world? And one last final category, which is, are you a team that hasn't yet gone remote, but you're still thinking about going remote? So let us know in the poll. Okay, the poll is closed. Trisha, the results, 100% people work together. Very interesting to see. That's actually the most common thing that I run into as well. Now, the information that I'm going to be giving you today is information that I've put together from the almost 100 interviews that I've done with virtual teams. So I've interviewed people asking about their best practices and the things that create a successful remote team. And I've put the hiring tips, I've put all of those tips together in this webinar for you today. So I want to share that with you. And if you want to hear more of the stories, you can always go to collaborationsuperpowers.com, and these stories are available in video and podcast format. So today we're going to be talking about where to start when we're looking for virtual teammates, what to look for, and I'll end it with some pro tips about the hiring process. Excuse me. So let's talk about where to start. Let's start at the beginning. And one thing that I learned from Jeremy Stanton, who is the CTO at a company called Collie, is that it's important to define the characteristics that you're looking for in a virtual candidate. So what are the things, who is it that you want for your team? And a lot of people don't actually sit down and define this, but I went through and made my own list. And on this list, you can see my top 3 things here across the top row, which is having great internet, being reliable, and being responsive. Those are my top qualities that I look for in a virtual teammate. And then I also have things like being proactive and a self-starter, self-motivated, self-disciplined, somebody who's honest, on time, and a self-learner. I really value curiosity and people who are always looking for solutions. So these are the things that I look for, and I keep it as a checklist for myself when I'm hiring somebody. Now, this is a great quote from Jeremy, and I heard this sentiment over and over in my interviews, and he says, I want people that don't need to be led, self-starters and accountable. I'd rather have the right kind of person than the right kind of resume. I'll take people that aren't a fit skill-wise if I know that they fit the culture and attack whatever problem I'm hiring them for. And I just really like that. I'd rather have the right kind of person than the right kind of resume. And I've heard that over and over again in my interviews. So we're going to take another poll. And the poll is, what characteristic do you value in a remote candidate? So we couldn't make this an open-ended poll, but you're always welcome to add your traits in the chat, but you have a list of characteristics to choose from. So what characteristics do you value in a remote candidate? Okay, so now that we know who we're looking for, let's talk about where to go to find a good virtual candidate. Now, from the interviews, hands down, the best place to find a virtual candidate was word of mouth. So people that are already in your network, people that you know and trust, friends, friends of friends, always start with people in your own network. But if you can't find a person in your network, there are other options. Now, Freelancer, Upwork, and Guru are sort of the top three that I heard about in the interviews and that people recommended, and you can't go wrong. For example, I lived for over a year on work that I found on Upwork. At the time, it was Elance. So great work there, great jobs, great things to check out. And if you're looking for something more specialized, then 99 Designs and Fiverr are good examples of something that offers more specialized services. 99 Designs, for example, offers more graphic design focused services. So needless to say, this is just a handful of many different sites out there where you can go to find virtual candidates, but you really can't go wrong with these. So let's talk a little bit about what to look for. What are the skills that we're looking for in a virtual candidate? Because they are slightly different than in a co-located candidate. So, we definitely need the same skill set. So if somebody's a good accountant, they also need to be good accountant when they're remote. So that skill set doesn't need to change. But there are other specific things that we need to look for that are especially important. And the first one is, are they a proactive communicator? Do they reach out when they need to? And it's difficult to tell this during the interview process, but you do get a sense of it based on their responsiveness. So, but really it is an important characteristic. If somebody's going to hide, it's just too easy to hide online. People need to be proactively reaching out and talking to each other. So look for that. Look for how comfortable do they seem online. Like, is it okay to do video calls for them? Is it fine? How does everything work when they join the meeting? Have they never used instant messaging before? How comfortable are they online? So you can get a sense of that during the interview process. Next would be, are they time zone literate? So I have a trick where for my clients, I always speak in their time zone. So I convert it for myself. But when I'm hiring somebody to work on a team with me, I talk in my time zone and I see how comfortable they are if they make the switch, if they show up on time for the time zone. So just get a sense for how time zone literate they are, because time zones are hard enough. We are all going to make mistakes. That's also something here to mention, is that everybody makes mistakes. The daylight savings changes in Europe 2 weeks after it changes in the US. Some places don't change at all. So time zones will forever be confusing, but get a sense of how literate a candidate is. David Horowitz is an interview that I did. He's the CEO of a company called Retrium, and they build remote retrospective software, great software. And he says, people who are passionate, even if they have slightly less technical skills, will be a better fit for your company than people who are brilliant technically, but think of it as a 9-to-5 job. I would hire the former over the latter any day of the week. So something similar to what Jeremy said, but he says people who are passionate, even if they have slightly less technical skills, will be a better fit. So I have a hack that I use for myself, because I did all kinds of tests using value words and stories of happiness, and it ended up being, I would ask myself at the end, could I spend 3 hours together with this person on a long bus ride? And for anybody that has taken a long bus ride, you know what I mean. So this is just a hack that I use for myself. Feel free to come up with your own question for how you would fill a culture fit. But for me, it's, could I spend 3 hours together on a long bus ride with this person? Okay, let's talk about the interview process and a little bit about how to interview. Now, one that I highly recommend is don't just use one form of technology. Use a combination of technologies. So use video conferencing, for sure, do a video call. Use instant messaging, so have a quick conversation over instant message. Use email to see how responsive they are, and have a phone call. So by using all the different mediums, you get a sense for their comfort level of being online, and you get a sense for the medium that they like the best, and the ones that work the best. So it's just wise to use a combination. Now, in terms of capturing all of this information as you're going along, this is a perfect way to plug Lucid Meetings because it's the perfect tool for doing that. So using Lucid Meetings during the interview process to capture the information that you're getting from this person is a great way of sealing the deal here. So highly recommended. Carrie McKeegan is the director at Greenback Expat Tax Services. It's a global company of accounting professionals that are located all over the world who provide tax services for expats. I use them myself. And when I interviewed her and asked her about hiring, she said, when I interview using video, I feel like I'm physically there in the same room, and I also get a sense of their professionalism. I've interviewed people before where they don't realize there's inappropriate stuff in the background, or they're wearing yoga clothes, or there are kids screaming and running around, and they clearly don't have an environment that's conducive to work. These things make it clear that they don't know what it takes to work virtually. So I 100% agree with this. I think definitely use video and check out their workspace and see how professional are they in terms of where they're working together. I think a great tip is, and something that I heard quite often in the interviews, was have more than one conversation. What I do is I have a series of short conversations and I bring in different team members for each one. And that sort of gives me, everybody has a different bias, so it's a good way of judging somebody. And also we have different questions that we're going to ask and different things that we're going to discover. So it's good to bring in different people. Now, I personally like recording those video conversations so that the team members who can't be there are also able to get a sense for who this person is, because not everybody's going to be there at the same time. So this gives sort of a really good opportunity, because while not everybody could be there, everybody can still participate and get a sense for the person using the video. One important tip is to never upload those videos into a public space, just out of respect for the candidate. This is strictly for internal use only. Do not upload it to YouTube. Find an internal place to do that. Okay, let's do another quick poll, and this time I want to ask, what combination of technologies do you or would you find useful for interviewing remote candidates? So there's a choice here of voice over IP, of video, of phone, email, instant message. What combination of technologies do you or would you find useful for interviewing remote candidates? So what combination of technologies? There we go. Now the results are coming up. 100% for video call. I 100% agree. And then we have 75% for some sort of Skype or voice over IP. The next, instant messaging and email, and the last, phone. It's true, phone seems kind of old-fashioned in the video world, but it can sometimes be useful. And I agree 100%, that video call is really, really important.
So Lisette, another important technology that came in through the chat was a technology for running the conversation and capturing notes, because we know this can be important when you want to document those interviews with candidates.
Great, thanks. Now I want to give you some examples of questions to ask specifically for remote candidates, and that is, 1, describe your remote working experience. Let them give you a sense for the type of experience that they have and how much experience that is. That just is a good overall general question. The next one I like to ask is, what do you like about working remotely? Now, I like to ask this one. It's surprising the answers that you get. I had one candidate who said, well, I like working remotely because I want to go off to this remote place in Greece where I have a cabin in the mountains where nobody can reach me. And I thought, well, that's probably not the best candidate for a remote team. So you get interesting answers. The next one that I like to ask is, what does your virtual office look like? So this is just a sense, get a sense for what do people need to get their work done. For example, I have an electric sit-stand desk that I really love. I have multiple monitors. I have a number of different webcams. I have some lighting that comes out, so I'm always illuminated even at night. So it just gives you a sense for how familiar and how comfortable is a person online. The next question is, what does a typical day look like for you? So that gives you a sense of if that person's going to need to have core hours with your team, are they going to be able to do that? What is their schedule like? Does that fit with the culture of your company? And one of the last ones is, what are your favorite online tools? I like to ask this question because it really gives you a sense for what tools they like and their technical savvy. Now, there's two questions not on this list because they're not specific to remote teams, but they're two that I really like. So I want to give them just out as freebies. And one is, what annoys you about other people's work? And what annoys other people about your work? And I've found that just to be a very interesting question. So I'm going to just throw that one out there, even though it's not specifically remote related. And hopefully you'll have as much fun with it as I did. Okay, I will leave you now with some pro tips. These are the pro tips that I've found through the interviews and my own experience, and that is, create a small hurdle. So I never just say, send me your resume or send me a link to your LinkedIn account. I would say, please answer this particular question, or maybe give a small task, but something small that gives somebody a chance to express themselves. So create a small hurdle, tip number one. Tip number two is to always check Google the person, and check their social media, because you're trying to get a sense for somebody who fits culturally. So get a sense of who they are, and most people have social media, and it's good to just see what somebody's online presence looks like. So don't overlook this. And it's the last tip, but I think it's one of the most important, and that is, don't settle. Don't settle for somebody because they're convenient. If you're not sure, then don't hire them. It's super important to get the right team members. So don't settle on somebody that is just convenient. So make sure you're hiring star players. I heard that over and over and over again. That's probably the thing that I heard the most, is hire the best people. And the good thing is that when we work remotely, we have the opportunity to broaden the search for remote workers and hire the best people for the job. So absolutely take advantage of this opportunity that remote working offers you. I'll end this with a few resources that I'd like to share with you. So if you want to look for more information and get more, there are 2 episodes on 2 different podcasts that I'd like to recommend. And the first one is my podcast, the Collaboration Superpowers podcast. In episode number 61, you'll find it's the Hire the Best for Your Remote Team episode. I give some additional tips there. And this one here is the 21st Century Work-Life podcast with the fabulous Pilar Orti, who has me on as a regular guest for Virtual Coffee with Lisette. If you listen to episode 9, we talk about recruitment in virtual teams, and that is a fun conversation. So I'd like to leave you with that. And the last resource that we have is, if you're curious about how to create a smooth, high bandwidth, non-glitchy team building experience online, consider taking the Work Together Anywhere workshop. It's available both online or in person, or even as a hybrid workshop. So you could take some online and some in person. So if you want to learn more, it's at collaborationsuperpowers.com. Now, if you have a great tip that you learned, or if you have a great tip that you want to share, make sure to go to #virtualsuperstar, and we will send a pack of virtual team cards, super cards, out to the person that, to somebody random who uses that hashtag. And if you want to buy your own super cards, of course, you're welcome to do that on the website here. I hope this information has been useful for you. I encourage you to reach out and get in touch. You can reach me at collaborationsuperpowers.com, or I am Lightling on Twitter, and always at lucidmeetings.com, and they are at Lucid Meetings on Twitter. So we hope to see you online.
Great. Thanks, Lisette. And with that, why don't we take some questions? Looks like we have some questions in the questions box, so we will go ahead and answer those for you.
All right, Peter, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
I can, indeed.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the tab's working because I put this question in the questions in the tab, but I'll read it.
Okay.
When you hire somebody from a different country, what do you need to know about labor laws? For example, do you pick up a liability for medical insurance? Can you be sure you're hiring an independent contractor and not a full employee? Things like that.
Indeed, that's a tough question. If you're hiring an employee from another country, there are services that will do that kind of information for you. I don't know what it's called right now, but I can get that to you after the webinar. I have a name of a company that does that for you.
Okay.
And yeah, it's important to know. Thanks, Peter. All right, I've muted him again. Elise, I'll unmute Elise, and we'll have Elise. Hello, Elise, you're on the air.
Hi, Lisette. So my question is about, so we talked about what makes for a good remote employee, and the proactivity about communication is something that we really value too. But what about for the people who are co-located? Do you have any advice for the people who work together in the office about how to best work with remote employees?
Yeah, there is a rule of thumb for that kind of situation. And actually, since everybody here is in that situation, the rule of thumb is if one person is remote, then everybody needs to behave as if they're remote. And that is really hard to do. So I'll say that in advance. But I know, for example, it's so easy just to turn to the person next to you and ask the question that you need to ask because they're right there. But when the conversation starts to broaden into other people need to know what this information is, it then has to be taken online to a group instant messaging system or whatever it is that your team is using. So it's a hard one, but when one person's remote, the whole team needs to behave as if it's remote as much as possible. It's impossible to do because we're programmed as humans to react to each other in person, but yeah, that would be the tip that I'd give. All right, I don't see any other virtual hands raised. So you're always welcome to contact us using the virtual superstar hashtag or our Twitter handles. We can always answer questions in the future, and we will go ahead and send out that pack of super cards to somebody. Yes, so thanks everybody for joining.
Keep tweeting the virtual superstar hashtag. We'll choose the winner at the end of the day today, and we'll announce it both on Twitter and in tomorrow's follow-up email. And we look forward to announcing who that winner is. So thank you, Lisette, for your time, and thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate it, and we hope you have a great afternoon, or wherever you are, evening.
Exactly. All right, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.